So one of the biggest things I never looked forward to once I started seeing and reviewing more and more movies are the dull ones, the ones that don't try. Hell, I actually look forward to seeing crap if just to say, oh yeah, I saw that, it sucked. But movies that just don't aim to do much interestingly were the ones that I feared the most. So here's the first one this year to really just, more than anything else, bore the hell out of me. Now, don't think I'm not aware this movie isn't aimed at my demographic, that being 20-something males who like interesting movies, but I do like this genre when it does something interesting enough to keep me interested. Unfortunately, How to Be Single is extremely dull and hugely cliched. It's one of those girls' night out type movies, and it's a poor example of one if I'm being honest. It's just another one of those rom-coms that relies on the written comedy and the people saying these lines rather than doing anything with how you can set up a shot, what you can do with editing, you know, things you can do with a movie. Well, to be fair, there was one, maybe two bits of visual comedy that play with the camera work throughout the entire movie. The direction by Christian Ditter is really uninspired on the whole, and the repetitive, scatterbrained, unfocused script does very little to make matters better. A lot of the plot is really lost because it is trying to juggle four main characters as well as the stories of some of the side characters on top of that. That being said, it really only ever focuses on one of the four main women, that being Alice, played by Dakota Johnson, who continues to pick bad projects even though she herself is a decent actress. She isn't great, but she does a good enough job with the terrible material she is usually given. Everybody else, though, just feels shoehorned into the story and come off as annoying or just not that interesting. Alison Brie's character's story could probably have been cut out altogether and nothing would have been lost from the main plot. Rebel Wilson is playing the same character again, and I'm getting really tired of it, and her character doesn't have much of a story at all, and really only exists to make the same jokes that Amy Schumer made in Trainwreck, only a lot worse. Leslie Mann is the only character that has almost an interesting story if only the other people in that story were well written enough, which they really aren't. I feel like all I have to say to prove how little this movie had me invested is to say the fact that besides Alice, I know none of the main characters' names, and that's a problem that I usually have with this genre. That being that I don't ever remember the names of the characters, just the people who play them. It really just seems like a dumbed-down version of Trainwreck, which sure wasn't anywhere near a masterpiece, but it at least treated the characters like people, and while it wasn't always well written, the film at least entertained and was a good example of a more feminist rom-com. This, on the other hand, tries so hard to try and be a woman-positive movie, but it really doesn't work on that end either. For example, Rebel Wilson brings up the idea that once two friends drink X amount of drinks together, they just have to have sex. And then two characters who both aren't really looking to be with each other sleep with each other based only on this idea. Just the idea that like, oh man, I had the number of drinks that my friend who is not very logical said I had to drink to sleep with this guy who I don't really want to have sex with, but screw it, let's bone. Pretty much everything this movie tried to set out to do was a failure. And that's mainly because of the awful screenplay, the bland performances, and the lazy direction. The director tries to do something including visuals that come out of something like Zombieland or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and if they actually used that layout in this rom-com and actually implemented the idea more, I think this could have been a bit more fun of a movie and I might have actually had a better time with it. Instead, these weird inserts only come in 3 or 4 times and they feel painfully forced in an attempt to be quirky or different. Also, the editing here is just awful. There are some really weirdly cut scenes that feel extraordinarily lazy. Also, the movie is just way too long, clocking in at an hour and 50 minutes, but I think the over 2.5 hours of The Revenant went by a hell of a lot faster than this film. There are some big jumps in the time of the movie, and there was a lot of change, or at least there are plenty of scenarios that could have been played out throughout that time, and it had me kind of confused at just some of the choices that the characters make. How to Be Single is just a really boring, cliched, poorly written rom-com that isn't going to knock the socks off of anybody. The acting is fine in it, I guess, and it could have been a hell of a lot worse from a technical standpoint, but I really had a hard time getting through this one because of how much of nothing it made me feel. If you're looking for a feminist rom-com, just go watch Trainwreck. Like I said, it isn't perfect, but it certainly feels more honest than this film ever did. This film is saved primarily by Dakota Johnson and the fact that I did just get a couple of laughs out of the whole thing, so it wasn't atrocious, and from a technical aspect, a lot of it is just decent. But the screenplay really is just terrible, so on the whole, I'm going to give How to Be Single a D+. Did you see How to Be Single? Be sure to leave your comments down below, and if you like my videos, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. And please share this video and consider donating to my Patreon. Thanks for watching, friends. Stay spectacular.